And so what I want to do is have an intervention, and it's an intervention around integrity. And the reason I'm calling it an intervention is it's what's wanted. There's a thing around how integrity has been showing up for you in your life that it really wants to be intervened. And I do visualize it's like that intervention where you have a group of your friends and family all standing around you, and they're sitting there with you, and you've got this thing that you think works, and they all sit around and have letters, and they're like, hey, this thing around integrity that you're doing doesn't work. The challenge is the reason no one does this is because likely no one in your life is living in a way around integrity that they could do that. It like everyone in the group would have to be doing this thing. And so this is going to be a group integrity intervention, and I want to be clear that this is not something that I do perfectly either. Like integrity and how it shows up for me is always a work in progress, but it actually allows progress. And when we get done with this, what I want you, my intention is to have you get access to actually how you can make real change in your life. Not the kind that we've been experiencing since we were born and been settling in. Okay? So what is integrity? So you might think integrity is the state of having moral values or moral uprightness. And for today, we're not going to talk about morals. I could do a whole training on morals, and morals have their place and they're valuable, and I have a deep sense and a deep appreciation for moral values. That it just doesn't work to have that conversation here. Okay? We could debate what is moral and what is not, and we will not be looking at integrity this way for this training. So because moral is something we could debate, and we could all have a difference in opinion, and like where we draw the line looks a little different for each of us, we just can't have that conversation around integrity because it's not the same thing. So what is integrity then? You guys can look it up, and it really is simple when you hear it. But for this conversation, we'll be looking at integrity as the state of being whole and or complete. So whole and completeness is integrity. Like think of a building being whole and complete. That's the integrity of the building. The foundation is the foundation integrous. A bridge. And we'll be looking at the only place we have actual impact in our creation. So as human beings, what makes us whole and complete? Well, when it comes to your health, that's like a whole nother subject, isn't it? But when it comes to our creations, like what we're up to and what we actually create, like what we're actually doing that's meaningful in life, that we're actually like up to something, that happens in the realm of language and our word. And so for some of you, it might be your business that's lacking integrity, or your money situation. It may be, for some of you, your relationships, or something you are up to that matters. Either way, the way I want to set you up is look where you feel the most stress, anxiety, or concern just in the last week. Like this is like always this thing where you can find and see what needs integrity by just looking in the last week where you felt the most stress, anxiety, and concern. What was the topic that created it? My lack of money, my debt, my business, a relationship I'm in, something I'm up to that matters. And again, I just want to emphasize we're talking about integrity as not something moral or right or wrong. Like this guy, this is such a great picture. There's this bridge that's like a glass bridge on the side of a mountain, and it cracked. You can see that, right? And they're actually built to withstand like huge cracks and they still hold up. But this guy is like crawling on this glass in fear of it breaking through and him falling through the glass, right? And you can't blame him because the bridge, this glass bridge, lacks integrity. And so, like, that's your life. When you're on the bridge of your life, or on the bridge of your business, or on the bridge of money, or your debt situation, or the income coming in, you'll feel the same way as this guy. There'll be a level of stress or anxiety or concern because there's this like science of a lack of integrity in that specific vein. Does that make sense? When you're on a strong foundation, you're walking proud. You're not even thinking like this guy. Like there's some fear you're going to fall through. But where there's a lack of integrity, you will. And so we're going to talk about your word. Like what is your word? So you've probably heard it said, my word is my bond, or I will honor my word. And we're going to look at how you create with your word, with agreements and verbal contracts. We'll also examine how to clean things up when you don't keep your word. Like, what do we do when I say I'm going to do something and then I don't? And I like break my word. So you might explain life like this. And on the right, you can see is like the level of power I have, right? And the bottom represents time. And it could represent hours, days, months, or years. But this is representative of time. And you might say that this is my life. Like it goes up. You could say my emotional state even. We'll put that one in there as a topic. My emotional state goes up, and it goes down. And it goes up, and it goes down. And it goes up, and it goes down, right? Are you ever just like flatlined? It's like, no, that's what death looks like. It's like what it looks like to be not alive. Or you could say this is my money situation. It goes up and it goes down. It goes up, it goes down. It goes up, it goes down. This might be my debt situation. This might be my income level situation. This might be my relationships situation. And it's like, just take a topic, guys. You would say, oh yeah, this is, I would say vaguely, this is how my life works. It like goes up and it goes down. And you might say that when I'm like up here, this is the area where it like feels really good. And like your view of life is like life's really good, or like this is as good as it gets and it feels good to me. I'm working out, my money situation's going well, things with the relationships are going well, things with the kids, like my overall view is things are good. And this would be like the area where it like feels bad, life sucks, or the business sucks, or the relationships, or the specific emotion that I'm wanting, like whatever it is. And we really think that this is how it is. And it's close. I'm not saying we're far off. How it actually occurs is like this. And this hit me today, or it hit me this week. I don't know how many of you guys follow the stock market, but I've been in the markets for, about a decade. And I've been watching them and studying them and watching people who are successful with them and really analyzing how and why the market moves. And this curve looks more like the market, doesn't it? Like and we're talking about stock market, not like Forex where there's like a balance between two, in a way equals. We're talking about like stocks that are very emotional because it deals with the emotion of human beings. And this could represent hours, days, months, or years on any type of chart with a specific stock or the S&P 500 or the Dow. And you can see, how does the stock market usually work? Well, it goes up slow, right? And then crashes. Goes up slow and then crashes. Goes up slow and then crashes, right? This is how the market works. Why does it do that? Because human beings are involved. Our emotional state of being is directly inputted into the market. Well, that's because this is how we operate. This is how life actually occurs for us. Is we have this like slow thing to get back up to this state that we really like. And then we have this self-sabotaging thing that throws us back to the bottom. And then we slowly come out, and we get thrown back to the bottom. And I'm not saying, guys, that this is how everyone operates, but I'm saying like 95% of the general population. So I would just try on maybe you also live in this space. And this is how it works for you. And I'm really wanting to crack the code around this for you so that it doesn't show up like this. Now, the fun part is just like the markets, there are like these support and resistance bands in life with your money situation, how much you can earn, with how much happiness and joy you can have, with the state of like peace that you have in your life. And you also have like a lower band. Like you kind of know the worst case, like you would never go below this area, right? Like for some of you, you've never had to live on the streets, right? You would say like that's your support band. You've never gone without eating, or you've never had to be hungry intentionally. Like you could have eaten if you wanted to, right? You'd say like these are support bands. And on the high side, it's like, and I never had a house over 5,000 square feet. Or I never had over $500,000 in my bank account. Or I never had less than $50,000 in debt. You know, whatever it is. You've got your bands, don't you? And you ride inside of these things like this. Now, the fascinating thing is where you are within your own support and resistance band of the access of level of power you have, you're stuck. So like this lady, I don't know if you saw, but she's got like this old cell phone. But like this lady, her band is here within the level of access of power. This being the lowest, and this obviously being like the highest. She's stuck, and she experiences highs and lows within those bands. Where this guy, he's clearly operating in like a completely higher space. He may never actually reach in to even her highs. His lows aren't even her highs. And his highs are like in a place that almost would seem insane to her, not feasible to her. You know those situations of stories of people you know about where they have like time and money? And you're like, well, I've got time, and so I'm happy right here with just time. But time and money would be in a realm I don't even have access to. Where this guy's got time and money, but he's running within a wavelength also. And then you have this guy, you know, who looks really nice, but he's living in his car, you know, and struggles to get a meal and commits crimes to like survive, and you know, whatever. It's all about the access of level of power, and we're all in different places, and we all have our own support and resistance levels within those brackets. Clear? So what if you could alter this? What if I had a method or a way to show you how you could alter this curve? Just change how you have access to this curve. From something like what you just saw to this, where when you came into a slump, you knew how to jump up and have access to power within moments or days or months, rather than your typical pattern of it taking forever. What if it was even better? What if I could break you out of your support and resistance band, and I could put you into something more linear, where you really got access to change, where when you broke out, you went to a new high that you've never been. Like this would really be different for you. It'd be real change. And I'm going to show you, we're going to look at how you think you're doing this, you think you're in this curve, and you're actually not at all. So it's intervention time, guys. And for some of you, this might be confronting. And I would just be open that like you haven't done anything wrong. Like this isn't this type of intervention where we're going to sit you down, break you down, beat you up. It's like, no, this is a really loving conversation. And there's nothing to be shameful or like sad about how you've been living your life up to this point. Because you've been doing it perfect. You've been doing it the only way you knew how. But integrity has been what is missing. It's why you're stuck inside of that band. And I'm going to create with you ways you can honor and restore integrity. Up to this point, you have not been doing this. You think you have, and you haven't. There's a higher level of this that you haven't been doing. The way you've been doing it is moving you up to the highest level of your band. You actually haven't been creating anything new and doing it at a higher point that you've never had access to. You have just been saying sorry when you break your word, when you go around saying you're going to do something and you don't. You think sorry is something that works, and you actually aren't creating any lasting change around the behavior, around the thing that's wanted, that you want. So I don't get it, but once I got clear on this, I got really the word sorry became this like really interesting word. Like why we even say it. And you might find it really interesting that a lot of languages don't even have a word for sorry. There are a lot of countries where in their context, they actually don't have a word for this thing that we do. Because if you look at the word sorry, what does it mean? Like, what's the definition of sorry? And what does it actually do? What are you really saying when you say, I'm sorry? Sorry is a damning agreement. And when it's like, you can say it, it's fine if you do, but it's a damning agreement when it's the only thing said. Damning meaning it like stops the progression of actually creating something. And we'll get into this and you'll really see this here in a second. It creates an agreement of not being responsible and not holding others to their responsibility. So I want you to see this. Like when you say I'm sorry, like let's just look at a really simple one. You're late. It's like I have this agreement to be here at this time of day, and you're late. And so what is it you do when you're late? You show up and you're like, hey, I'm really sorry. And then you might fill it with a bunch of your reasons and excuses, which is like a whole nother training. But you fill it with all your reasons and excuses. And then what does the other person do? They go, oh, okay. Right? And what you're actually doing in that moment is you're creating an agreement of not being responsible. Because when you say sorry, and the other person goes, oh, okay, no big deal, what are they actually buying from you? They're buying an agreement that this behavior is okay, it's acceptable. And why would they ever do that when it affects them that you were late? That there's impact to their day, to their job, to their business, to them making money. Why would they ever be okay with that? Because when they show up late, what agreement are they looking for? Oh, the same one. It's like you owe me now, because in this world of agreement where all I have to do is say sorry, I never have to be responsible for the impact. And so in my life and in the other people's lives where we use this word, that this is all we have to do, what do we actually buy? We buy our support and resistance bands. We buy being stuck. And it's like this thing we do, like this misery that loves company thing. We do it everywhere, guys. We do it because it feels good to be right. It feels good to like at least be justified in the behavior, to be a victim, and to have other people be victims too, so we can justify the behavior of not being responsible. So your word and integrity. Having integrity with your word would mean doing what you said you would do, when and how you said you would do it. That's what having integrity with your word is. This also means doing what you know is in your space to do and doing it when and how you said you would do it and how it is expected to be done. So what if I can't keep my word? What if I'm like, okay, Matt, this sounds great. Like I'm really starting to see this thing around keeping my word and having integrity in my word. But like, what if I can't keep it? Because you'd get like in your, like, word is how we create. It's how we get what we want. It's where money's going to show up. It's where your business is going to work. It's where your relationships are going to happen. It's in word. And what if you start making agreements and you can't keep it? Well, it's really simple. And you might want to take notes on this because this is big. The first thing is you're going to want to acknowledge to yourself and those it may impact that you won't be keeping it. So, like, if you're going to be late, right, you'd want to acknowledge to yourself and to those who you've told you would be there on time that you won't be keeping that agreement. Just really simple. Hey, John, I'm calling, or hey, I'm texting. Like, I know I said I was going to be there at 12 and I can't. I won't be there at 12. No excuses, no reasons. You don't need to say I'm sorry. That's ridiculous. Reinstate that you will keep your word in the future or you won't. You know, this may not be about being on time. You might have some crazy agreement in like a relationship you're in, or like with some money situation, or this agreement with a partner in a business. And you might just have woken up that this agreement doesn't work for you. And you might say, you can count on me keeping my word around this in the future. Or you can count on, this does not work. And it's really loving, guys, and kind not to say yes to what other people want. It's really kind to say yes to the things that work for you and no to the things that work for you. Because then other people can adjust to what's real. Because likely the thing you will break your agreement around the most will be the thing you really don't want to do. So it's just really kind. Like if it doesn't work for you and it really isn't something you want to do, to just be like, no, I won't be doing that. And then people can count on that. And then create something to deal with the impact of breaking your word created. So you want to create something that deals with the impact. If you're late, sorry doesn't deal with it. Creating something to deal with it would be like, hey, I get that this probably set your day back. And I also get that like it shortens the time that we have together to like do this thing. And that's a big deal, right? So to bring integrity back, here are your steps. And I've kind of played with this, and these are the 4 steps I've created. 1, eliminate the word sorry from your vocabulary. You'll just notice that you're not interested in the integrity conversation if you start it or use the word sorry. You're going to go back to the old habit. So just get rid of the word sorry from your vocabulary. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't patch the hole in the wall. It doesn't deal with impact. It doesn't create something new. See what agreement, contract, or promise you broke. Like just acknowledge it with the person or with the group. See the impact that breaking your word created, specifically the result or what it caused. So if it's on time, hey, I just want to acknowledge like I was late, right? That's what happened. I broke that. And I'm really committed to being on time, or you know what? Actually, I can't do this. This doesn't work for me in the future. And then get the impact. And if you don't get it, like if you can't see it, just ask them like, hey, and there's got to be something that this created for you, me breaking this promise or this agreement. Could you share with me what that was like? What that was for you? And you might find that people jostle in this because they don't like this. They don't like you being responsible because then there's a new thing between you and this person that it's like, hey, who I am now around this person can't be late. And the sorries aren't going to be enough. You see how it just shifts the world when you get responsible. And then create what you will do so it doesn't happen next time. And you have to do this in the world of language, guys. This is the breakout. This is the intervention piece that is missing. You get the impact for them, and then it's like, you know what? I was late, and I get that something I could have done is I could have put a reminder in my calendar to like have an alert or an alarm come on so that I won't be late in the future. And you know what? I'm going to do that. I'm going to put an alarm in next time. You can count on me doing that so that I'm not late next time. It's like something new. And you can see, guys, how like there are people you know that are like really impeccable about being on time. And it's like, how do they do that? They must have a process or a system in place that really works for them. Or you'll know people that are really good at making money. And it's like, they must have a process or a system in place that really works for them. Or you'll have people that are like really good in relationships. It's like, oh, like they must have a process or a system that really works for them. Well, how would you ever get access to that if you didn't deal with bringing and restoring integrity back to your word? You'd have no access to create, and you'd be stuck in your support and resistance band. So I want to also share with you, right and wrong has no access to power in this conversation. If you go into shame and guilt, which you likely will do at some point again in the future, but you can know if you bring shame and guilt into this, it will not give you or the other people impacted any breakthrough in your word with power. So like you won't have power in your word and recreating it and getting the impact over there. There's nothing right or wrong about what happened. It's just what happened, and there's impact, and there's facts that you get to deal with. If you go into space around this, around it being right or wrong, or you go into like a place of shame and guilt, you will have no access to being effective in restoring integrity. Like just notice when you've done this, when you go into a place of shame or guilt, or you go into a place of like it being right or wrong, you notice how like that avoidance thing comes up, or you go into a place of hiding and like who you are like has no access to power. You can't even think straight half the time. I'm just pointing that it doesn't belong in this conversation. It doesn't work. And if you actually just dealt with the impact and then you created something new, you'd actually have access to real change, really making a difference for the people it impacted, really making a difference for you in your life, and then you break free. You break out of this support level that you've never experienced. So guys, you can do one of two things here. You can keep doing what you're doing. You can stay with the sorries. You can still be making what you do right or wrong, or when other people break their agreements and contracts, you can make them wrong. You can keep doing that and you'll just be stuck. It's like we really resist being responsible. And what has us stuck in this pattern in life is our resistance toward it. Why we go down so fast and then we have to crawl our way back up is because of the resistance in our life. Like we call this in trading and in the stock market, support and resistance. You see that? And I'm not the first one to say this, but the thing we resist persists in our life. It does in the stock market too, guys. But the thing we resist persists. And it's time to break out. It's time to have real access to this. By learning to restore integrity, we start to break out of our support and resistance bands. We start to put a linear curve on our level of power.